All right, today we are diving into one of the most brilliant, most notorious corporate tax strategies ever created. It honestly sounds more like something you'd order at a deli than a complex financial scheme. But trust me, this was the recipe giant companies used to make billions of dollars in taxes just poof, vanish. And just to wrap your head around the sheer scale we're talking about here, imagine shifting 20 billion euros in profits in one single year. That's what reports suggest a company like Google was doing with this strategy. And the craziest part, they paid almost no tax on that money. And at the time, it was all completely legal. So the big question is, how on earth did they pull this off? Well, the answer is hidden in that very peculiar name, the double Irish Dutch sandwich. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how it worked, why it was legal in the first place, and what finally brought the whole thing crashing down. To see just how powerful this was, just look at these numbers. Before 2018, the main U.S. corporate tax rate was up at 35%. But by routing their profits through this sandwich, companies could absolutely slash their tax rate on foreign money down to the low single digits, sometimes even less than 1%. It's just a staggering difference. Okay, so let's get into the blueprint. The whole strategy, the entire recipe, was built around three key players. Three separate companies that all had to work together perfectly to move money across borders like a well-oiled machine. The whole thing hinged on these three subsidiaries. First up, you have Irish company number one. Now, this company held all the really valuable stuff, the patents, the trademarks, but here's the key. It was managed from a tax haven, like Bermuda. Then you have the Dutch company, which was basically just a middleman, a simple pass-through. And finally, you have Irish company number two, which was the boots-on-the-ground operation, the one actually collecting all the sales revenue in Europe. Each one had a super specific and absolutely crucial job to do. Okay, so here's how the money actually moved. First, Irish company number two makes a ton of sales in countries like Germany, France, you name it. It then pays these massive royalty fees to the Dutch company for the right to use the patents. And boom, those fees wipe out almost all its taxable profit in Ireland. Then the Dutch company, true to its role, immediately passes that money on to Irish company number one. And because that company is managed from Bermuda, it pays a tax rate of pretty much zero. And the result of all this clever financial routing? It was something tax experts call stateless income. This was like the holy grail of tax avoidance. You're talking about billions of dollars in profit that, legally speaking, didn't belong to any single country's tax system. It just floated in this financial limbo, completely untaxed. So you're probably asking yourself, how was this even possible, right? How can all that money just hop between countries without anyone taking a cut? Well, it all came down to brilliantly exploiting two very powerful loopholes in international tax law. These were the secret weapons. The first secret weapon was this really clever mismatch in definitions. You see, under U.S. law, a company's tax home is where it's legally incorporated. But under Irish law at the time, what mattered was where the company was managed and controlled from. So you had Irish company number one, which was incorporated in Ireland but managed from Bermuda. So what happened? The U.S. saw it as an Irish company, but Ireland saw it as a Bermudan company. It was a perfect paradox. I mean, this quote just nails it. This setup created a company that was effectively a ghost for tax purposes. It was a hybrid entity that just slipped right through the cracks of two different legal systems, and all its profits could just pile up completely untaxed. Now, the second weapon was all about avoiding any, let's call them tax toll booths on the money as it was moving. Thanks to EU rules, Ireland couldn't tax the royalty money going to the Netherlands. And conveniently, Dutch law also let that money flow right out to Bermuda tax-free. That Dutch company was the crucial filling in the sandwich that made the whole transfer work without a hitch. But, a scheme this big, this effective, and, yeah, this controversial, it wasn't going to stay hidden forever. As the public found out about it, the outrage grew. The political pressure mounted, and the world finally started to fight back. And the end, when it came pretty swiftly through a bunch of coordinated global actions. First, the OECD launched a massive project to fight exactly this kind of profit shifting. Then, in 2015, Ireland itself changed its own laws to close that residency loophole. The U.S. followed with its own huge tax reforms. And by 2020, the loophole for existing structures was shut for good. The sandwich was officially off the menu. And all this pressure, it actually worked.
Faced with a tidal wave of changing laws and really intense public scrutiny, even the biggest players who use the scheme, like Google, publicly announced they were dismantling their double Irish Dutch sandwich structures.
But here's the billion-dollar question, right? Did closing this one infamous loophole actually solve the problem, or did the end of the double Irish just change the rules of the international tax avoidance game? Well, the legacy is kind of complicated. The crackdown did a lot more than just end one scheme. It really kicked off a whole new era of international tax cooperation. It directly led to huge global reforms, like the big push for a 15% global minimum tax. But that fundamental drive for companies to lower their tax bills, that hasn't gone anywhere. They just adapted, creating new and sometimes even more complex strategies. In fact, get this. Even with the double Irish completely off the table, current estimates suggest that corporations are still shifting somewhere between $500 and $600 billion in profits to tax havens. Every single year. The game is far from over. And that kind of leaves us with one final provocative thought. While this very specific, very famous recipe is gone for good, the global hunt for the next big tax-saving strategy, well, that's almost certainly already underway. The menu has changed, but the appetite is still there.